And that's why I read to you from the book of Ecclesiastes, as he was saying, this is what nature is, this is the gift. This is the gift. So that's the first thing I'd say, that various channels that we need to be aware of for our imagination. Second, we know that imagination has the property to be destructive and to be creative, to be retrospective and to be prospective, to be nourished and to be transformative. Imagination. There are those whose imagination turns them into great people, generous people. And there are those that imagination turns them into warmongers, into torturers, into liars, into terrifying people. There are those whose imagination encourages them to believe in that kind of world, just as other people, imagination encourages them to believe in a very different world. Imagination can be positive, it can be negative. It needs that overlay of a good spirit that we heard from the epistle this morning to create a different awareness of the possibilities. You see, we can all get stuck in our life. You can be overwhelmed by your situation. But then, if you're open to it, imagination comes to your help. And it can lift you out of the past, even out of the present fix. And it gives you a fantasy of a new future. Without the fantasy of the future, we can remain stuck. But a good imagination creates, constructs, carries us, transforms the dreadful, gives us a dream amongst all of our realities. Imagination tells us something else. It says, imagine. Imagine being part of a bigger world. Imagine being part of a bigger faith. Thirdly, imagination is very subjective, and it is also very intersubjective, very personal and interpersonal, very much inner world and also outer world. What an extraordinary thing it is. At one time, you can be Robinson Crusoe, completely inside your own imaginings, or then you can let the man Friday of the footprint, the man of the footprint becomes part of your world, part of your imaginings. Friday of the footprint, leading you to imagine something different. Any one of us can become enclosed in our negative imaginings, believing in the power of your inner demons, don't we know it? But that can be changed as you touch something different, as you touch a new faith in the future, as imagination is tested against reality, as the emptiness of imagination is nourished, as new resources are brought into play. Imagination is lived in your head, but it is also lived on the rugby field, as it were, as we create and recreate a better world out there, as well as a better world in here. So I come to the fourth. Imagination in its positive sense is essential for empathy to occur. Empathy means that we begin to imagine what the other person's life is like. Without imagination, we stand apart from the other person. We can't imagine what they're going through. But empathy, if we develop it, allows us to imagine what it must be like. And we feel sad as they feel sad. We feel supportive. We imagine the possibilities of support. We feel sympathetic because of our capacity of imagination and identification with their situation. Imagination, you see, is then arousing the consciousness within ourselves and the other person, and carries us forward to the contribution that we can give to it. It's so essential, isn't it, to have that imagination working in the interpersonal as well as within our own heads. And the fifth, and I'll be finished. Imagination keeps hope alive. It becomes a carrier of hope. It says hope will bring the energy of a new faith. Hope is the gauge. It is the gauge of how alive we are. Imagination. You can have all the knowledge in the world. Read what Albert Einstein said in the Order of Service paper. He said, knowledge is important, but imagination is the test of everybody's intelligence. The other day at one of the funerals, I met some people from Kalgoa, way up. Is it in the Wimmera or the Mallee? One or t'other. And he said to me, we are having a bad time with the floods. And I said, as one who knows farming communities from childhood, I said, you know, you farmers complain that there is no rain, and then you complain that there is too much rain. So he smiled at me and he said, complaining is our job. And we're good at it. So there he was, lifting me, lifting himself and saying, yes, we know what we do. At a wedding recently, a somewhat happier occasion, of course, each of the bride and bridegroom, each of them was getting married for a second time. And they asked me beforehand to do them two favours. They said, would you give us the same blessing that you give on Sunday mornings? And would you give us the same marriage talk at the end of the wedding as you gave to our friends a year or two ago? Whoa, wait a minute. I said, well, I can do the first quite easily. I could remember that, but I can't remember what I said to your friends. And they said, never mind, do something like it. So I said, at the wedding, I said three things. And as I reflected afterwards, I thought that those words apply to me. And they apply to you, I think. And they apply to the church council meeting today. Let's see. I said to them, this is the time to reinvent yourself. It's time to reinvent yourself. And I gave a couple of examples. I said, this is the time, secondly, this is the time to imagine creating surprises. We all need surprises. So imagine, create surprises. And then thirdly, I said that it's time to recall the words of Solzhenitsyn, the Russian author. He, in imagination, took us into the cancer ward of a hospital. And there he had us listen to a conversation between two men. They were patients in the cancer ward. And one said to the other, you see, Pasha, we only live once. So why not live it well? What we want to do, he said, is live well. Imagine that. Imagine it. And then translate imagination into reality. Would you please stand? And the blessing, pause for the blessing. Here it is. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forward. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.